Well, it's because of the energy that's held in form through the consciousness. Remember, the consciousness is just the ability, the energy to hold the form of memory. So when I'm crossing souls over, I'm either dealing with low souls or high souls. And I go into graveyards and I'll cross over hundreds of souls at one time, and most of them are the low souls that are attached to the earth that many, many times when people die of trauma and shock,
they hang around, right?
They hang around because they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And just imagine you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you're hit by a bus and you didn't see it coming, and the next thing you know, you're standing there looking over your body, what's left of it, and you're thinking, hey, that's George down there. Yeah. What's going on?
Or maybe you don't even see your body, Rich. Do you keep walking?
Well, it depends. If you step on a landmine and you're blown to pieces, you're not going to see any of it.
There's not much to see.
But many times, people will see their own funerals, and they'll go to their funerals. They'll be standing over their casket, and they'll look at all the people that come to their funerals. My father was a classic example. When he was dying in the hospital, I went in there with him, with my daughters, and I sat there, and he was in a coma, and I was able to communicate with his lower soul, and we talked about our life and what he had learned while he was on Earth, and my lessons that I had learned, because I had to be a caretaker for several years, and I learned unconditional love by loving someone that had dementia.
Mm-hmm.
That was mean half the time and didn't understand what they were doing.
Right.
His higher soul had already left. It had gone up to the higher realms. But his low soul was still in the hospital because it's connected to the energy field of your body, or what we call the autonomic nervous system.
Now, does that energy field die off completely upon death?
Well, yes, it goes back into the earth, or it departs from the body. It doesn't stay with the body.
Yeah, does it leave immediately?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how soon it will leave, but what happens is the spirit. Now, a lot of people don't understand what the spirit is. The spirit is not the same as the soul.
A lot of people think it is. So there can...
Okay, let me explain to you what the spirit is. Behind your heart chakra, there's a little light of energy. It's called your spirit, and it's what holds everything in form in your chakra system. And the energy comes from the universe, and if you want to use words like, I use the word prime creator, you can use God or whatever you choose to use, but there is energy flowing into your chakras, both positive and negative polarity, and it holds your chakra system in form. And when you die, and your physical body dies, this spirit, this energy, merges with the high and the low self, and it continues to hold. It provides the energy for the soul to exist, continue to exist. So when people say, well, I see a spirit, okay, what they're saying is, I see the energy of that soul as like an orb. I take pictures all the time of orbs, and they come to me, and I speak to them because they're really souls, and I find out why they're hanging around and offer my assistance. So going back to the spirit, it's very interesting because the spirit continues with the soul and it provides the energy. So our souls don't die, they just transform to different dimensions of energy.
Now, when all this is occurring, all this is going on,
mm-hmm.
What about reincarnation? Where does that fit into the equation, or does it?
Oh, absolutely. And reincarnation is really vital because if you don't understand or believe in it, then it's very hard to comprehend the fact that you've had past life experiences. So what's interesting about reincarnation is your high soul we'll go into the higher. Now, let me explain to you a little bit about dimensions, because I'm going to lose everybody here. If you were to look at the Earth and the universe, or the ionosphere of the Earth around the Earth, you could just divide it into like 10 segments, 10 different sections. And the Earth itself would be number 1, and then just a little above the Earth would be number 2, and number 3 dimension would be you and me. We're in what we call the third dimensional of energy. So now when our high soul departs from the body, it goes into either the fourth or the fifth dimension. And that's why when we see these programs with these ghosts, what are we looking at? We're looking at a soul that's kind of still in the third dimension, but most of the time it's in the fourth, because we can't see with our naked eye what's in the fourth dimension. But some souls have the ability to manifest their energy, or into what we can see. Okay, I'm leading up to reincarnation, but it takes me a minute to get
That's
there.
okay. We're going to take the break. We'll come back and talk about that. And also we'll get into how you cleared several burial grounds. You'll have to tell us that story. And then we'll get into the spoons next hour with phone calls. Rich Ralston, our special guest right here on Coast to Coast AM. And, of course, next hour we'll take your phone calls. Rich Ralston with us. His work, subtle energy, and the world we experience. And welcome back to Coast. Rich Ralston with us as we talk about subtle energy. Rich, okay, we're talking about reincarnation. Let's get your thoughts on that.
Well, why we came here in the first place was to experience as much as we can. Our souls came here to learn and to grow and to evolve. And we come back time after time to work on improving our souls, or our existence, and to experience so many things. This earth is a very interesting place to be. So it's very challenging for our souls to be here. When I talk to the souls that are departed, they go through a process of evaluation of what they learned, and then they decide to come back again and work on other things. So that's why we come back. It's quite interesting.
Now, you were able to clear some burial grounds. Tell me about that, and what do we mean by clearing?
Well, what I mean by that is that the low souls or high souls that were hanging around the burial grounds. For an example, they built a subdivision over a burial ground. It was a Native American burial ground that it was back in the 1800s. And these people would move into this houses, and they couldn't stay there very long because there was so much activity. Sounds all over the place, apparitions. But anyway, so I was asked to come in, and basically these low souls are still there. I talked to the Indian chief, and I got his approval, and there was like 60 or 70 souls staying there in their Indian attire, and they wanted to go back to what we call the Akashic Records, where their soul group is. There's a group of souls, and they stay together, and they come back and experience different things together. So I cross them over, create a vortex that goes into the earth, and they step into it and go back into the other dimension. So I've done that over here in Hawaii. They built a supermarket on top of a Hawaiian burial ground. And
you're in Maui, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So imagine you work there, and you're walking down the aisle, and somebody pushes you, and you don't know what's going on. And the next, you come in early in the morning, and there's groceries stacked all the way to the ceiling of the building, and you wonder, how did that happen? Well, you got a whole bunch of angry spirits because somebody bulldozed their burial grounds.
Yeah, they're not happy about that.
So
Can't blame
I go in and I speak to them and get them to release their anger and forgive everybody before we cross them over, because you don't want to cross angry spirits over because they'll come back angry. So you want them to forgive everybody, and then they go back, and they'll be okay. The next time they come back, they don't have to come back as Hawaiians. They can change into a different soul group and come back as somebody else. So it's very interesting. Many of us have been many nationalities in our past lives.
The work that you have been doing, do people come to you? Do you go to them? How does that work?
Well, most people come to me. As far as clearing burial grounds, I usually just go there. I go into an area, and my guides, ancestral spirits come, angels come, and they show me areas that need to be cleared of souls. I go into a place at night, take pictures, and I'm surrounded by thousands of orbs, so I know I've got my work cut out there. So I start communicating with the souls and find out how long they've been there. Some of them have been there several thousand years. They're waiting for somebody that knows what they're doing to cross them over. Or some soul groups will stay attached to each other until everybody in their soul group has died. And those soul groups can be anywhere from 50 to 5,000 souls. And they'll all go back together. They'll all go back and return into Earth or go up into the higher dimensions because they all want to stay together and they want to evolve together.
Rich, we've got a lot of people who have animals.
Yep.
And they're always concerned that when the animal dies, what happens to it? Does it, too, have a soul?
Absolutely. Now, animals have souls, and they go down into they go into the lower realms of consciousness, and they're there, just like trees. Trees have their own consciousness. It's kind of funny you would say a tree has a soul. Well, it has an energy field. So trees have the same sort of energy fields as humans and animals. So next time you prune your rose bush, just be nice to it.
You might as well. You never know, huh? Tell me about Herman the Ghost.
Well, there was this lady came to me for, she had some emotional things she wanted me to clear of her, but she'd sailed around the world with her husband on this big yacht, and they were over in Singapore, and her husband got really sick and had to go in the hospital, and apparently he was sick enough where they just couldn't continue with their voyage, and so she stayed on the sailboat, and she wanted to sell the boat, and she was on the boat for several months, and every time she'd go to the front of the boat, there'd be this stinky smell, and she'd go through and clean everything, but it still stunk, and she couldn't figure it out. Finally, she put two and two together and figured there must have something to do with the supernatural. So she kind of just put two and two together, and she started talking to this entity and says, okay, you get the front of the boat and I get the back, and don't bother me and I won't bother you. So that was fine until people were coming to buy the boat.